Gopi Java Girivara Dhari Yasodanandana Rajana Ranjana Sodanandana Rajana Ranjana Ramuna Tira Bhagachani Ramuna Tira Bhagachani Jaira Rumar Abba Mundra Bihari Jaira Rumar Abba Mundra Bihari Om Jnana Timirandasya Vinanjana Sarakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. It's got some sharp little things in there. Here's the garden. Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rubhagada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagar Jatam Sahagana Ragana Tadvidam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Koruna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapachu Visha Kripa Sindhu Vivacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayem Udirayet Nastapreshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavat Shevaya Bhagavaditama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. So today, June 6th, 2024, the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Wonderful. It's a big celebration. Yes, it's the day we beat the Nazis, we invaded. Such is the history of the world. But today we're going to be talking about Kshatriya Dharma and what it really means. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 22, Prithu Maharaja's meeting with the four Kumaras. Today is text number 50. Karmani cha yatha kalam yatha desham yatha balam yato chitam yatha vitam akarod brahmasat kritam karmani cha yatha kalam yatha desham yatha balam yato chitam yatha vitam akarod brahmasat kritam karmani cha yatha kalam yatha desham yatha balam yato chitam yatha vitam akarod brahmasat kritam.
Karmani cha yatha kalam
Karmani cha yatha kalam
yatha desham yatha balam
yatha desham yatha balam
yato chitam yatha vitam
yato chitam yatha vitam
akarod brahmasat kritam.
akarod brahmasat kritam
Karmani cha yatha kalam
karmani cha yatha kalam
yatha desham yatha balam
yatha desham yatha balam
yato chitam yatha vitam
yato chitam yatha vitam
akarod brahmasat kritam.
akarod brahmasat kritam.
Karmani cha yatha kalam
Karmani cha yatha kalam
yatha desham yatha balam
Yata desham yatha balam yato chitam yatha vitam akarod brahmasat kritam.
Karmani cha yatha kalam
Karmani cha yatha kalam yatha desham yatha balam yato chitam yatha vitam akarod brahmasat kritam. The synonyms: karmani, activities, cha, also, yatha kalam, befitting time and circumstances, yatha desham, befitting the place and situation, yatha balam, befitting one's own strength, yatha uchitam, as far as possible, yatha vitam, as far as one can spend money in this connection, akarot, performed, brahmasat, in the absolute truth, kritam, did. Translation. Who's speaking? That's right. On top of it. Sri Maitreya is speaking to Vidura. Being self-satisfied, Maharaj Prithu executed his duties as perfectly as possible according to the time and his situation, strength, and financial position. His only aim in all his activities was to satisfy the absolute truth. In this way, he duly acted. Please repeat. Being self-satisfied.
Being self-satisfied.
Maharaja Prithu executed his duties as perfectly as possible,
Maharaja Prithu executed his duties as perfectly as possible,
according to the time and his situation,
according to the time and his situation,
strength and financial position.
strength and financial position.
His only aim in all his activities
His only aim in all his activities
was to satisfy the absolute truth.
was to satisfy the absolute.
In this way, he duly acted.
In this way, he duly acted.
Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Maharaja Prithu was a responsible monarch, and he had to execute the duties of a Kshatriya, a king and a devotee at the same time. Being perfect in the Lord's devotional service, he could execute his prescribed duties with complete perfection, as befitted the time and circumstance, and his financial strength and personal ability. In this regard, the word karmani in this verse is significant. Prithu Maharaja's activities were not ordinary, for they were in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Rupa Goswami has advised that things which are favorable to devotional service should not be rejected, nor should activity favorable for devotional service be considered ordinary work or fruitive activity. For example, an ordinary worker conducts business in order to earn money for his sense gratification. A devotee may perform the same work in exactly the same way, but his aim is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. Consequently, his activities are not ordinary. Prithu Maharaja's activities were therefore not ordinary, but were all spiritual and transcendental, for his aim was to satisfy the Lord. Just as Arjuna, who was a warrior, had to fight to satisfy Krishna, Prithu Maharaj performed his royal duties as a king for the satisfaction of Krishna. Indeed, whatever he did as emperor of the whole world was perfectly befitting a pure devotee. It is therefore said by a Vaishnava poet, Vaishnavera kriyam mudra vighena bhujaya. No one can understand the activities of a pure devotee. A pure devotee's activities may appear like ordinary activities, but behind them there is a profound significance, the satisfaction of the Lord. In order to understand the activities of a Vaishnava, one has to become very expert. Maharaj Prithu did not allow himself to function outside the institution of 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. Although, as a Vaishnava, he was a Paramahamsa, transcendental to all material activities. He remained in his position as a Kshatriya to rule the world, and at the same time remain transcendental to such activities by satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Concealing himself as the pure devotee, he externally manifested himself as a very powerful and dutiful king. In other words, none of his activities were carried out for his own sense gratification. Everything he did was meant for the satisfaction of the senses of the Lord. This is clearly explained in the next verse. And whoever's giving class on the next verse is very fortunate indeed, because it's all pure nectar, as is this verse. Karmanita yata kalam, yata desham yata balam, yato chitam yata vitam, akaro brahmasat kritam. Being self-satisfied, Maharaj Prithu executed his duties as perfectly as possible, according to the time and his situation, strength, and financial position. His only aim in all his activities was to satisfy the absolute truth. In this way, he duly acted. Mukum karoti bachalam, angam lagayate girim, jatkripa tamaham bande, sigurum dinatarinam. So just hearing this verse and the purport, we have to consider ourselves extremely fortunate to be engaged in hearing and chanting in this way. And that is the way of Krishna consciousness. To hear and chant about the activities, the pastimes, and the philosophy of the Lord from the Holy Shastra, in this case, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered to be the cream of all Vedic literatures, as explained in the first chapter of the Bhagavatam. Rasamalayam. So the cream, you take a large quantity of milk and there's cream contained therein, the cream rises to the top because it is the very essence. So in the same way, you take the entire range of the Vedic Shastras and the Vedic knowledge, and what is contained in Srimad Bhagavatam rises to the very top. It is the very essence, and it is the most relishable mode of ingesting Vedic knowledge is to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is explained in the Bhagavatam itself, and that is also the experience of those who perform this activity. And this activity of hearing and chanting Bhagavatam, and like chanting our 16 rounds on beads, and chanting in kirtan, it is something that is not performed for the satisfaction of the senses, but it is performed for the satisfaction of Krishna's senses, as explained in today's purport. Now, this is not going to be understood by persons who are not devotees, or persons who are not aspiring to be devotees. We may not be, and we certainly are not great devotees, but we are aspiring to progress on the path of Krishna consciousness, the path of bhakti. That's called the bhakti marg, the path of love and devotion to Krishna. But whether one is a very neophyte, just beginning to step onto the path of bhakti, or whether one is somewhat further down the path in terms of realization, understanding, and practice, or whether one is the topmost Paramahamsa, as mentioned in this verse, that Prithu Maharaj is Paramahamsa. What does this mean, Paramahamsa? We should know the meaning of this because we say every day, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajaka Acharya. So, yes. So Parama means supreme or the best. Hamsa means swan. So a Paramahamsa is the topmost swan-like devotee. And in the case of the Jai Om Vishnupad prayers, or also known as the Prema Dhwani prayers, the spiritual master, specifically Srila Prabhupada, is referred to as Paramahamsa and Paribrajaka Acharya. And Acharya means spiritual master, teacher, who is generally a master of the subject of Krishna consciousness and a master of the Vedic knowledge, and very expert, as also mentioned in this verse, the word expert, in engaging himself and others in Krishna consciousness. That's Acharya, Paribrajaka Acharya. Paribraja means he's going around everywhere. Like parikram, circumambulation. Pari, so that means to go around. When you go to Vrindavan or you go to Navadvip, Mayapur, you go on parikram, you go around. Krama means step. So Paribrajaka Acharya, the spiritual master, he's traveling all over. If he's a great preacher, like Srila Prabhupada, well, there's hardly anyone like Srila Prabhupada, but for example, Srila Prabhupada, there's no one like Srila Prabhupada. He's completely unique and unprecedented in his Paribrajaka Acharya activities, going all over the place, preaching Krishna consciousness. And that he did. Only he was unique amongst the previous acharyas by being what devotees refer to as jet age Paribrajaka Acharya. So he's literally going all over the world to preach Krishna consciousness. He's going everywhere. Europe, America, Asia, South America, Australia. They even went to Australia, mate, and opened a temple. So that is Paribrajaka Acharya, Paramahamsa Paribrajaka Acharya. So here, Prithu Maharaj is also characterized as a Paramahamsa. And very interestingly, Prabhupada, as Prabhupada always does, Prabhupada has very interesting and amazing insights into the Srimad Bhagavatam that he gives us in the form of his purports. He says that Prithu Maharaj, although he's a big Kshatriya, biggest of the big, emperor of the world, and carrying out and fulfilling so many important monarchical duties that the emperor will have to do, managing the different parts of the empire, engaging the sub-kings and the ministers, and looking after the welfare of the people, making sure religious principles are followed, rendering judgments, levying taxes, building roads, so many things that are carried out under the auspices of an emperor. Yet, while he was doing this, he concealed his position as a pure devotee, Prabhupada says. So, he's a big, tough king. And anyone who's dealing with him, there's no mistake who they're dealing with. Not some pushover. He's a big, tough king. But really, he's a pure devotee of the Lord. And I'm reminded of one pastime that's mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about a devotee who was a physician in the royal court of the Muslim ruler. And then in the summer it's hot, so they have a peacock fan. Of course, we think of peacock fan as exclusively for the worship of the pure devotee and the deity of Krishna, but they also use peacock fans like ordinary fans. Differences between peacock fan, ordinary peacock fan, is that we're using it for the service of Krishna, but someone else may be using it as in the service of the king, fan the king. The king has many servants and attendants, and they're very attentive in what they're doing. And then this devotee, he was not a Muslim, but he was part of the king's entourage because he was the royal physician. And when he saw it, they were seated on a very high platform, like risers, like stands in a football stadium or something. And then he saw the peacock fan and he went into ecstasy because he's remembering Krishna. There are many peacocks in Vrindavan. And so Krishna wears the peacock feather in his crown. And so when he saw the peacock feather fan, He went into a swoon of ecstasy. Not on purpose, not trying to show off, like someone may pretend to go into ecstasy. Oh, yes, I see how Krishna conscious I am. I'll tell another story about that too. That happened during Prabhupada's time. And then he fell off the platform pretty far down. And you can just imagine. Like Chiru at one of his color festivals, he fell off the stage and he broke several ribs and had to go to the hospital. And, you know, it was a big thing. Not a young fellow. Young fellow should not be, I mean, older gentlemen, you know, don't do well when they fall off of high stages. So this devotee, royal physician, he went crashing down. And then the king said, well, what happened? So, sometimes I have these bouts of dizziness and I lost my balance and I fell down. But even the Muslim king, he knew that wasn't right. He thought it was the peacock fan. And somehow it's just bhakti is devotion to Krishna. He intuited that. There was another instance where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his walking on foot all over India, he was coming to one place where there was a Muslim king, and then there was a devotee who was an advisor to the king. Sometimes devotees are in different positions in the world. Just like Rupa and Sanatan, they were the prime ministers of Nawab Hussain Shah, the Muslim ruler, and he would leave everything, the administration of his kingdom in their hands, and he would go off and fight wars. Because he's the king, that's sometimes what they do. Only he was a sort of a rascal going off and giving pain to Hindu kings. So that wasn't like a good guy. But Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami were in charge of the administration. Therefore, when they wanted to leave to serve Lord Chaitanya, it became a problem. And that's how Sanatan Goswami ended up in jail. He was staying home, hearing Bhagavatam in the company of devotees and brahmanas, and not showing up to the court. It's like he wasn't showing up for work. And the king was like, you know, what's with Sanatan? Oh, he is reporting that he is sick. And so he sent one of his men to check up on Sanatan. And he came back and said, well, he was sick? He said, no, he was not sick. He looked fine, hale and hearty, but he was hearing and chanting Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. And then the Nawab was furious. If you're my prime minister, you have to come and do your duties. And Sanatan was reticent, so he just threw him in jail. Try this on for a while. Let's see if you come to your senses. They throw you in the dungeon. You know, they have deep, dark dungeons, just like in, you know, old movies where they have castles with deep, dark dungeons. So emperors have deep, dark dungeons. And Sanatan was the prime minister. He threw him in the dungeon. Threw him in jail. That's the whole story, how he got out of jail, by bribing the jailkeeper. So it would appear that Maharaj Prithu, or like this royal court physician who was a devotee of Krishna, was doing the ordinary duties, but within they're thinking of Krishna. And they're doing their work, which may appear to be identical as the work of some ordinary royal physician or king or emperor, for the satisfaction of Krishna. Although it appears to be the exact same work performed in the same way, Prabhupada explains in the purport. Just like right now, Ram Gopal is sweeping the front porch. So there are many sweepers who are sweeping front porches. And it may be the same funky green broom on some porch somewhere with the same tile, and someone is sweeping for sense gratification, but he is sweeping to please Krishna. So that is the difference. It is not the same thing. It appears to be the same thing, the same activity, but it's the consciousness in which it is performed that is different. And so Krishna's telling Arjuna, okay, give up your lethargy, get up and fight, kill these bad boys, and do that for me. And so Arjuna did. Imagine, he's shooting arrows, swinging swords, jumping off the chariot. So many things you have to do in the battlefield. You really have to focus on the activity itself, but done as a service to Krishna. And so everyone has their chariot and their battlefield in life. And we have to learn this fine art of devotion to Krishna, no matter what our particular duty and activity may be. And it is not the same for everyone. Everyone doesn't have the same duty. Everyone doesn't have the same work. Everyone has their own path. And you have to follow what's been given you in your lot in life, as explained in this verse, according to time, place, strength, and financial condition, and serve Krishna. So that is the deeper meaning and the deeper understanding of Krishna consciousness. And again, I'm very pleased whenever Prabhupada uses the word expert. And that is one of the 26 qualities of a devotee. A devotee is expert. And Srila Prabhupada demonstrated that. And he was expert in everything. He could manage, he could do kirtan, he could do business, he could counsel people psychologically, he could cook. I never tasted Prabhupada's cooking, but I heard it was out of this world. Just like Srimati Radharani has a benediction from Durvas Muni that whatever she cooks, and of course she cooks for Krishna, so whatever she cooks and offers to Krishna, it is like sweeter than nectar. So to be able to cook like Radharani, sweeter than nectar, it requires to be what? Expert. And Srila Prabhupada was very expert in so many things, but his cooking also very expert. And devotees taking preparations cooked by Srila Prabhupada were just amazed at these preparations. And then one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, how did you become such an expert cook? His answer was, I learned from my mother. One time when I was a brahmachari, there was one brahmachari. His name was Amritamsa, Italian fellow, Italian-American fellow. He was kind of a meticulous fellow. And he was very expert at folding his laundry when he came out of the dryer in such a way that there were no wrinkles in his clothes. Pay attention, because we have talked about this. And so I asked him, I said, the way you deal with your clothes and you folding them and smoothing them out and not having any wrinkles, it practically looks like it's ironed. Said, that is very expert. How did you learn to do that? He said, I learned from my mother. So there's something to be said for having a good mother and learning such things. And someone else was folding up their clothes and wadding them up and this and that. And he said to that devotee, he said, didn't your mother teach you anything? And Prabhupada used to say of his Western disciples that you are all not very well trained, but become expert by growing up in a good family and learning everything first class. But that is a principle in devotional service that Srila Prabhupada has taught us. That first of all, everything that is done has to be done for Krishna. That is Bhagavad Gita. Yat karoshi yat ashnashi yat johosi tatasi yat tapasyasya kaunteya tat karusha madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you eat, whatever you give away in charity, whatever austerities you perform, said tat karushva madarpanam. Do that, O son of the Kurus, Arjuna, madarpanam, as an offering unto me. So that is an essential point in the practice of devotional service, that one has to learn to do everything that one does as an offering to Krishna. Just like as we speak, Shanti is on the altar bringing the offering of the foodstuff, which is expertly cooked and prepared with love for Krishna, and she's making the offering. And that is the perfection of whatever one does, whatever one offers, whatever one eats, whatever one gives away, whatever austerities one performs. And everyone is performing austerities. Anyone ever have a job and get up in the morning and go to work? That's an austerity. Especially if your boss is a rascal. But even if they're not a rascal, still it's an austerity. And similarly, we accept here in the temple the same, by the same token, or pursuing the same principle, the austerity of rising very early in the morning, chanting the holy names, attending the daily Mangal Arti and the programs. It is an austerity. Why is it austerity? Because every ordinary person would rather be asleep, and in most cases they are. Unless they're a baker. Bakers get up very early in the morning. And those of you who were here may remember when they were building the housing development in the next block, the pillbox houses. During the summertime, like now, it gets very hot. Today is supposed to hit the auspicious 108 degrees. Of course, in the Vedic lexicon, 108, Ashtotarashata, is very auspicious. There are 108 gopis. Krishna married 16,108 wives, 108 principal wives. Our japa beads, we chant the holy name, 108 beads. It's a very significant, auspicious number. So someone was saying, oh yes, 108 degrees, it is very auspicious. And my reply is that it is too hot. More auspicious would be 75 degrees. Although the number 75 itself has no particular auspicious connotation. But if you go up to Mount Lemon today, it'll be 75 degrees. So yes, that is more auspicious. It is more comfortable. So the point is taken that one has to learn the art of doing everything for Krishna. And an ordinary person has already mastered the art of doing everything for sense gratification. But that doesn't require much depth or much intense meditation. It's just automatic because the conditioned souls are naturally inclined toward sense gratification. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Do you have to teach this in school? No. No, everyone knows. You get some money and you make arrangements for your body for sense gratification and for comfort. That is ordinary. That the cats and the dogs and the birds and the beasts, they require no formal training to go about their business of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It's just automatic. It's just what you do when you're a conditioned soul. No training required. The overarching principle is just to enjoy somehow or other this body and the senses, and to make arrangements for that. And the human beings are much more expert at making these arrangements than the birds and the beasts. Does that make them special and more elevated? In and of itself, no. But what makes the human form of life extraordinary is that one has the ability to inquire, who am I? Just like Sanatana Goswami, a very learned scholar. He spoke Urdu, Persian, Sanskrit, Bengali, Hindi. He spoke all the languages of the day, and was a great scholar in all of them as well. Didn't just speak them, but was a great student. And he knew many philosophies and vastly intelligent, superior intellect. Yet he presented him very humbly before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ke ami, who am I? And also very importantly, he followed it up with, not only who am I, but and why am I suffering? Why are the threefold miseries of material existence beating down on my head? Why is that? So you kindly, Lord Chaitanya, you enlighten me. Tell me who I am. What is my position? So what to speak of Sanatana Goswami? What about us? We're not great scholars like Sanatana Goswami. But the same principle applies. Who am I really? And what is my dharma? What is my duty? What is my business in life? And the answer is given in the Shastra that this life, this human life, is meant for self-realization, for understanding your relationship with Krishna and engaging in Krishna's devotional service. And then everything that you want to achieve, that you think you might achieve through sense gratification, but which you won't, actually get the result that you're thinking. You become more miserable and more entangled. All kinds of weird stuff will happen to you. Because that is the way of Krishna's material energy. Just like the comedy group Monty Python's Flying Circus had a skit, "No one escapes the Spanish Inquisition." They had many comedy routines based on that. But the principle is the same. No one escapes the threefold miseries of material nature, raining down upon one's head and mercilessly throttling one into complete anxiety and misery. No one is exempt from that. Everyone gets that. There are no exceptions. Everyone takes birth, and everyone must face death. There are no exemptions, no exceptions. It is the law of Krishna's material energy. And that material energy, which is throttling us so thoroughly and frustrating us and causing us so much anxiety, it's Krishna's energy. And Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. Daivihesha gunamayi, mama maya duratyaya. It's duratyaya. You cannot cross beyond this effect of being thwarted by Maya, because it is Daivi, it is divine energy. But there's a catch, there's a loophole. You can get out. How's that? Mameva ye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. Those who surrender to me, Krishna says, can easily cross beyond it. What's that verse in the 10th canto? The first word. Vambudir vatsaparam padam 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 yavi padam natesham. That vatsapadam, the whole ocean of material existence becomes shrunk up to vatsapadam. Vatsa means a calf. The hoof print of a calf which is this very small round thing. If the calf steps in the mud and there's a little muddy hoof print there, you can easily cross beyond that, but you can't cross beyond this whole ocean of material existence. But for one who takes shelter of Krishna, that whole ocean of the material existence becomes shrunk up to a vatsapadam, the size of a calf's hoof print, which any child can easily cross beyond that. Although generally the kids, they like to step right in it and splash the puddle. So that's a very powerful statement, that the whole ocean of material existence, which is insurmountable, uncrossable, becomes shrunk up to this tiny little thing that you can happily skip over on your way back home, back to the spiritual world. So who would not want to do that? Well, apparently there are a lot of people that don't want to do that don't want to surrender to Krishna. Most. It's very rare. Sa Mahatma Sadurlabaha. To find such a great soul is very rare indeed. But we have been given this wonderful opportunity. Now, Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he refers to Rupa Goswami, and actually he's also referring to Sanatana Goswami. And there's a couple of verses I'm going to extract and read for you here. The first one is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Sri Rupa Goswami, where he says, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yakarham Upayunjitaha Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate Prapanchikateya Bhuja Hari Sambandhi Vastunaha Mumukshubi Parityagyo Vairagyam Bhagu Katyate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts anything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. In other words, one is renounced. Sometimes one may renounce everything artificially. That is not real renunciation. The second part of the verse refers to that. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. Yuktam Vairagyam Algate. So there's a river called the river of Palgu. And if you look on the surface, you don't see the river, it is dry. But if you stick your hand down far enough in the ground, you'll see it is wet. So the renunciation of someone who is artificial, not accepting everything as belonging to Krishna, is like that Palgu Vairagya, that or immature renunciation, Prabhupada calls it. Oh yes, I am renounced, I am detached from everything. So you think, oh yes, externally very dry. But if you look within the heart, you see it is wet. I want sense gratification. It is wet. So that's false renunciation. But real renunciation means understanding that everything that we see in this world actually belongs to Krishna. And whatever it is that we can rightly and justly engage in the service of Krishna, then that is real detachment and that is real renunciation. Not just sitting under a peepal tree chanting Om, but we have peepal tree out by our pond, but also cleaning the pond, but not killing the fish, and watering the other plants and taking care of the birds and sweeping the front porch and cooking the offering for Krishna, doing the artik, chanting the holy name, all the things, all the activities that we do in Krishna consciousness. That's explained. There's actually a verse from the Narada Pancharatra that's quoted in the Bhakti Rasamrita of Srila Rupa Goswami, our great Rasa Acharya. And this verse also you'll find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Madhya Lila at 19. Sarvopadiva nirmuktam tatpara toina nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanim bhakti uchite. When one engages one's senses, we all have our senses, in the service of the master of the senses, Rishikesha, a name for Krishna. Sometimes a Rishikesh on the bank of the Ganga in North India, in the foothills, the Himalayas. People think, oh, it's Rishikesh, it's the place of the rishis. But actually it's Hrishikesh. Although now they call it Rishikesh, it's Rishikesha. Rishika means the senses and Isha means the master. So Krishna, he's the master of the senses. And one who engages their own senses in the service of the master of the senses, then sarvopadi vanirmuktam. One becomes liberated from all artificial designations or upadis, external things, unwanted things. What are those upadis? What are those designations? I am this body. I'm male. I'm such and such an age. I'm, from this country and have this DNA and I have these desires. These are all external things that in reality have very little or nothing to do with the identity of the soul, except for through acquired karma, and we've taken a certain birth. So when one becomes vinirmuktam, muktam, liberated from these artificial things, that is the result of engaging one's senses in the service of Krishna. So that's good. Why is that good? Because this body is temporary. So your so-called identity as a man or a woman or having a certain complexion or a certain collection of desires and self-identification with one's material circumstances, these are all quite temporary. Ask anyone who died. Oh, wait, you can't ask him. But if you could, that happened in the presence of, in the kirtan at the house of Srivas Thakur. During the kirtan, his Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there with his associates having kirtan. And the son of Srivas Thakur actually passed away, a little boy, during the kirtan. And then, but Srivas Thakur, he didn't want to disturb Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so he let the kirtan go on. And then when the kirtan came to an end, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, he's omniscient. He says, something has happened in this house. What is it? Is, oh, Lord Chaitanya, my son passed away. What? Your son passed away? Right in the kirtan. Oh no, what a disaster. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the lifeless body of the son and he touched him with his hand and he came back to life. And then he asked him, why have you left your father, your parents, your life in this village of Mayapur? And then the spirit soul spoke. The boy spoke. Who is my mother? Who is my father? I have had so many births, so many mothers, so many fathers. It is all temporary. It is all the illusion of Maya. In actuality, I, the spirit soul, due to my karma and my activities, will leave this body just like I have done and go to another body. There will be another mother, another father. What is the great significance in that? So in this way, he preached the temporality of material existence, and all the devotees were astonished. Of course, they were really astonished when he brought them back to life and started talking and preaching this high philosophy, this Vedic philosophy. So, Sevanim Bhaktir Uchite, that Rishikena Rishikesha, that engagement of one's senses in the service of the master of the senses, Sevanim Bhaktir Uchite, that is pure devotional service, it is called. So, that comes up in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now also, there is a verse from the Hari Bhakta Vilas by Sri Sanatana Goswami, a pair of verses. Let's see, where is it? Oh, here it is. Anakoyasya sankalpaha pratikoyasya varjanam rakshishyatiti vishvaso goptitre varanam tata atma nikshepa karpanye shadvidha sharanagatihi. So sharanagati, which is explained here by Sanatana Goswami and further elaborated on by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he has one collection of songs called Sharanagati. It's very wonderful. And the translation is, the 6 divisions of surrender are acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service. That doesn't mean just favorable to my sense gratification. No, that means favorable to devotional service. The rejection of unfavorable things. What are unfavorable things on the path of devotional service? Meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, just to name the 4 principal ones. Yes. The conviction that Krishna will give protection. The acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master. Krishna, you are the master and I'm your servant. That is the essence of Krishna consciousness. Full self-surrender and humility, the one of which I have not approached yet in this life. So, one has to understand that everything belongs to Krishna, what is favorable for the execution of devotional service, and one has to reject what is unfavorable. There are many unfavorable things that we encounter. It may be association with our family. That's always a big one for new devotees. There are many things which can be unfavorable, and one has to have the intelligence, the discrimination, to know what is right, what is wrong. And Krishna gives that intelligence from within. And in case you're not listening to Krishna giving that intelligence within, there are many devotees who will be willing to help you. Even if you don't ask them, they will tell you anyway. So we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Briefly, any questions or comments on these topics? Yes, Chandrika.
In materialistic thinking, when people become expert at something, they become really proud and puffed up and feel like, I'm so great. Is the difference like with a devotee who's surrendering to Krishna, becoming expert as we should become, we become more humble about it because we know we're not the doers, Krishna's the doers.
Krishna's giving the intelligence. How can you be puffed up? It's not even your intelligence, it's Krishna's intelligence. But we have our intelligence and we have to use it in Krishna's service. There was one letter where a Mataji had written Srila Prabhupada asking a series of questions about practical things to be done in the temple, how you do this, how you do that. And then one of the answers was like number 5 on the list, Prabhupada's number 5, use your common sense. And if you don't have any, ask someone who does. One of my favorite instructions from Srila Prabhupada. So, he's been quoted as saying that Krishna consciousness is like, for the most part, common sense, but engaged in Krishna service. But if you don't have any, it's all right. Just ask someone who does. And even if you're afraid to ask, some devotee will volunteer that instruction, no doubt, sooner or later. All right, anyone else? Oh, thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Whenever I see